podcast made by women for women. We talk with a wide variety of experts, ranging from a sex therapist to the CDC and everywhere in between, to bring you the stories you're only going to hear here. Our goal is to entertain and educate, because it's more clear now than ever just how much we as women are doing, as parents, as spouses, employees, just as everything. Don't miss out on being in the know. Subscribe to Soul Source wherever you listen to podcasts today. Leave us a review too, because this part's really important. When you leave those reviews, that's how we're able to continue bringing you the content you love each and every week. So buckle up, Soul Source Society, because we're about to get started.
Most people are really clear about what they want, but they're pretty clueless about what they need.
Hello, everyone. I am your host, Raquel Lamel, and today's episode is all about this four-letter word, L-O-V-E, love. We are talking about finding love, keeping love, and even manifesting love. Ladies, my guest today has experience in all of it, and she is lending that expertise to us here on Soul Source. I met my husband personally on Tinder. Yes, that is a true story. And that's just not a method that I would recommend most people use. It worked, but it doesn't work for everyone. I know so many more people who they sign up on these dating apps and they're going on these dates and it's just not working out, and it gets them to the point of frustration, right? So Dr. Holly Battey is here, and she says there's a better way than just swiping left or right. So I know we all want to hear these secrets. Dr. Battey, welcome to Soul Source.
Thank you so much for having me, Raquel. I'm so excited to be here.
So you're a coach, a love guru, a matchmaker, so to speak. Tell me exactly, what does that mean? What is it exactly that you're doing?
Yeah, well, succinctly, I help people find love and keep it. Yeah, so I work with conscious single men and women, mostly professionals, who are looking for the best love of their lives, and I help them manifest it. And how I do that is through coaching, my masterclass, and also matchmaking.
So I want to talk with you first about this matchmaking component and helping people find love just in general. What made you decide to want to get into this? How did you pick this as a career?
Yeah, great question. Well, I'll take you way back. It was certainly an evolution and not anywhere that I thought I would end up. But I actually started my career as a psychologist, and I went straight through from kindergarten to doctorate, got all my education out of the way. I worked with trauma victims for a number of years. Okay. It was very fulfilling work, but pretty stressful work. And so after all those years of schooling and a stressful caseload, I went into executive search, where I was pairing top talent with corporations and startups in Silicon Valley. And that was really lucrative, but not that meaningful for me. And so, but I did that for a number of years, and then I finally got laid off. And I thought, I really want to find my calling. I was a big Oprah fan. And she always talked about, the two most important days of your life. The first being the day that you're born, and the second being the day you figure out why. And I knew that I didn't know my why, even though I'd done all that education. And so it set me out on this soul searching journey. And it took me to Africa twice, and it had me exploring all of my different passions, of which there were many. And when I got back from Africa, I decided to start this business. And, personally, I'd had a lot of boyfriends. My number one desire for my life here on the planet was to find a deep, true love. And I had some really wonderful men in my life, and I also had some really not so wonderful men in my life. And after the last of the latter, I drew a line in the sand and I said, I'm not doing this anymore. And I asked myself some really hard questions, and became who I was meant to be. Did a lot of self-care, a lot of reflection. And at the end of 8 months, I met my amazing husband, and we started dating, and the rest is history. So we've been together 8 years, and how this circles back to why I'm a matchmaker and a love coach now is that, I had a lot of heartbreak And I had a lot of the roller coaster rides of dating, not unlike probably a lot of your listeners. And I just thought, plus I have the educational background, and I actually manifested my amazing husband. So I thought, if I could really put all of this together, and I don't think finding love should be as painful, nor should take as long as it usually does. And so if I could use all of my experience to help other people get there faster, then wouldn't that be fulfilling work? And thankfully, it's turned out to be.
So, you talk about, the matchmaking piece that you're doing and what got you involved in this. And we hear so many advertisements. I mean, the first one that comes to mind for me is like eHarmony, right? You can sign up and they're going to matchmake you and they're going to help you find somebody. So how is what you're doing different than signing up on a dating website?
Yeah, well, it's very, very different. When you have a matchmaker matching for you, it is highly personalized and a customized search, as opposed to when you're looking for love on a site. It's essentially like a database, and there's an algorithm involved. And so whatever you say you want and whatever they say they want, then they match you up accordingly. How matchmaking is different is we do a deep dive personally and get really clear on what you're needing and wanting. Most people are really clear about what they want, but they're pretty clueless about what they need. And so we look at both. I do values-based matchmaking, because when we share values with our partner, it tends to be far more sustainable. I don't know, but I'd rather have a real life person who's experienced matching me up rather than, an app or an algorithm.
Well, and you said you do more than just the matchmaking piece, right? So you're also doing the coaching, helping people be sustainable. And you mentioned there was a reason why you put a little bit more of an emphasis on the coaching piece than the matchmaking piece. Can you explain that to me a little bit?
Yeah. So what I have found in doing this work for 7 years now, I guess, is that those who've had some coaching or have had my masterclass before they do the matchmaking are far more successful over time. When we do the matchmaking first, my clients tend to do relationships like they did before, and often it didn't end up working out. And often the reasons it doesn't work out is we're the common denominator of our past relationships. And so there's a lot of potential rabbit holes that especially women can fall down before manifesting a soulmate type of love. And so the masterclass and the coaching is really designed to help prevent you from falling down those rabbit holes, and to also coach you and empower you to make a better decision this next time, so that you're clear and you can qualify matches and teach them how to treat you and get you the commitment that you really deserve. So it really sets you up for success, so that when the matchmaking comes, which is why it's the first step of matchmaking, actually, the way I do the work, so that when I do send you the high caliber matches, you're ready. You're really, really ready. More ready than you might have thought you needed to be.
It makes so much sense to, it's like getting the roadmap before you actually take the trip, right? So it just makes so much sense. You talked about rabbit holes. I want to ask, are there certain things that women tend to do? Do we have certain rabbit holes that in general we've kind of fall into? And if so, what are some of those traps?
Yeah, great question. Yeah, there's a lot of rabbit holes. One is we often don't know how to choose the right partner for us. We think we do, but we often don't. And so, one of the rabbit holes is we tend to value looks over character. And it's not to say that attraction isn't important, it is. But often we are weighing looks so heavy that we're unable to kind of factor in character. And so when we don't value character, we can only imagine the type of men that we're attracting then.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that's a big one.
Okay.
One of my masterclass clients just recently said to me, I think before the masterclass, I was weighing looks like 75%. And she's like, and now she's like, you got to bring it. Like, you got to bring me more than looks. Like, I'm looking for a lot more now. So she's become far more selective.
That is interesting because I feel like we think of men mostly as the ones who are really looking at looks, not so much women. So that's interesting that that's what you're seeing.
Definitely. Definitely. I think we often underestimate how visual women are.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely.
So we have a few single ladies in our office here at Red Shoes. And so I asked them, I had a couple questions. I said, okay, I'm talking with, a love guru today. And I was like, so what questions do you have? And so I got a couple questions from them. One of those being that awkwardness of when you meet somebody and trying to determine, like, when are you exclusive? When are you not? How do you have that conversation and not freak somebody out? What are your suggestions in that realm?
Yeah, great question. That moment in any dating or relationship is really pivotal, right? And that's often when things can go terribly wrong or not in the way that we're hoping. I think it's important that we're really clear about what we want and that we really get clear about what the person we're dating wants. Usually before we started dating someone, we had a desire, a dating objective, like, why are we dating? And so it's really good to get clear on why you're dating. And it's also really good to get clear on why the person you're dating is dating. And it's it's a separate question, actually. You want to ask that sooner rather than later, before it gets to being primarily about you, right? Because it's a very different question to ask, what's your dating objective, versus what do you want with me?
Mm-hmm.
Right? And so we want to know what they want independent of us early on. Not to say that it can't change along the way,
Right.
but yeah, you're reminding me of a matchmaking client I worked with a few years ago, and I matched her up with this really wonderful man, and they'd been dating for, I think, about 10 weeks or so, and she was really smitten with him, and he was handsome and successful and all this, and she's like, I kind of want to know, like, is this going somewhere? Are we exclusive? Like, she said, but all my girlfriends are telling me don't have that conversation. Don't be that girl,
Yep.
Right?
Yep. That's what every girl, I feel like that's the girlfriend talk, is don't be the clingy one.
Right. Right.
Mm-hmm.
But my counsel to her was just the opposite, right? Because she's an amazing woman. She has a lot to offer, and better to know now where she stands than to wait 6 more months, a year, just keep wondering.
Mm-hmm.
It was up for her. It was important for her to know that. So I think we've got to be authentic.
And people are always afraid, I feel like, of like scaring the guy away or scaring the person away. Is that something you should be afraid of? Or is it one of those things where it's like, well, if they are scared away, they're not the one?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. If they're scarable, they're probably not the one. I mean, there are, exceptions, someone who might be recently divorced or hasn't gotten over some past trauma, or yeah. But and sometimes men just aren't ready. Like, men, timing is really important with men.
Mm-hmm.
It's important with both of us, but men and women. But women, for the most part, we usually want to be partnered and coupled and adored by a man who loves us, no matter what's going on in the rest of our lives. Men, they're a little bit different.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So you talked about manifestation. You said you manifested your husband? What do you tell me about that first?
Yeah, well, I did that 8 months of intense inner work. It was quite a journey, and yeah, not easy, but very deliberate. And so I actually never thought I would ever do this, but I actually wrote off men. And I wasn't sure for how long. I'm such a romantic, but I never thought I would write off men. But but I did. I got into the place where I was like, this much and no more. And I wasn't sure if it would last 6 weeks, months, or years. I really didn't care at that point. I just knew that like I had to work on me and do kind of, some intense inner work if I didn't want to repeat, my last experience. And so I did that. I did that for 8 months. And I actually ended up writing a poem about my last relationship. It was I think, kind of a cathartic, healing thing for me. And it's not like I've written a ton of poems in my life. I'm not sure I've written any poems in my life, but for whatever reason, it came to me that form to express myself and to kind of resolve that last relationship. And so I spent 2 months actually writing this poem and, just wordsmithing every word and trying to really have it articulate my experience and everything. And at the end of 2 months, I decided I really wanted to, had never done this either, perform it in front of a spoken word audience.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
And this is someone who used to despise public speaking, by the way. So I don't know where this idea came from. However, I had a good friend that I would often invite to things that I wanted to go to when I was single. And so I invited him. And I said, hey, and he was creative and usually up for whatever. And so I said to him, hey, I really want to go to this spoken word event. Would you join me? And he's like, sure. So we met up there, and I, funny enough, never ended up reciting my poem. But they did this thing monthly. And so I was like, this is really fun. We should do this monthly. And he's like, yeah, we should. And one thing led to another, and he started inviting me to things in between. And now we're married.
Aw, that is such a good story. So you've done this in real life, and now you're helping other people manifest. How, like, is still a step process? Do they have to write a poem? How does that work?
That's a great question. No, they don't have to write a poem. But yeah, I mean, essentially what I did is I created a comprehensive program, my masterclass, to take you from where you are now to where you want to be. And, it detailed all my process as well as all of my clients. And we look at, preparing you for love. We look at mindset, the importance of our beliefs, and how important it is that they align to our goals. We talk about getting super clear on what we want, everything from like eye color, hair color, height, to values, to aligned goals, to a lot of other really important things, personality attributes. Mm-hmm. Then we talk all about how to qualify matches based on what we're looking for, and we define what a yes is from a no. So it gets really clear, because it can be really murky when you're out there and you got chemistry with this guy, but so and then we talk about the importance of teaching other people how to treat us. A lot of women don't want to hear anything about that, but that's what life is, right? I mean, no matter if we're talking about love or, at work, or, life is all about teaching other people how to treat us. And so much of love and relationships is about our relationship with ourselves. Mm-hmm. And every other relationship stems from how we feel about ourselves. So we talk about that. And we talk about, how to navigate modern dating and online dating and how to really optimize that. And then the last piece we talk about is how to get the commitment you deserve and how to manifest it. And so essentially it's kind of my secret formula, secret sauce, if you will, that ends up feeling like magic to my clients. A recent masterclass client of mine, she just manifested the love of her life in 6 weeks. And she's like, to tell you the truth, Dr. Holly, she's like, I was skeptical when I joined.
Uh-huh.
But she's like, I didn't even know this type of love existed.
This is so fascinating. And I love how quick it works. 6 weeks is not bad, ladies.
Yeah. Oh, it's such a joy. And, it doesn't take 100% belief, it just takes kind of a grain of a mustard seed, if you will, and doing all the right things and not falling down the rabbit holes, and a little bit of guidance and coaching and commitment, really, to finding the one. Because, what I found is that the reason most don't find their soulmate is because they settle.
Okay.
So if we're settling, we don't leave ourselves open to actually finding, our amazing partner that was really intended for us.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so I have to ask you, because this, I have to imagine, is having an impact on dating, is the pandemic. How do you do that? How do you navigate? Because that's like a whole nother element to dating that just doesn't normally exist in the normal world.
Yes, definitely. Well, I actually wrote the masterclass last March, right when COVID started. And I've done some challenges called Finding Love during COVID, or I forget, during lockdown. That's what it was. Finding Love during lockdown.
Oh, yeah.
Because I thought, we don't know how long this is all going to last, right? And I didn't want my clients to have to wait a year to manifest the love of their dreams. And so, because it's an online program, I thought, well, they can do this at home. They can still make progress toward their love goals, and they can still date, but they need to do it in a safe way. And so I ran that challenge, and we'll be running it again in September.
Good timing, because there's potential lockdowns looming.
I know. What is so crazy is that every time I do the challenge, the numbers, like, for whatever reason, are always getting worse. Like, we're always going
Don't tell us that. Don't tell us that. We're going to start blaming you for that.
I know, right? But there are safe ways to navigate, and there's actually been some amazing dating trends that have come since the pandemic started, which are actually things that women have really wanted to happen in dating. So, like, one of the things is, morbid as it might seem, when we are faced with our mortality, we tend to shift our priorities, right?
Oh, okay.
So a lot of people who might not have been looking for love in 2019 are definitely looking for love this year. They know what it's been like to be without a partner, or they know what it was like to not have a wonderful relationship, which ended probably during the pandemic. And so now they're probably ready and looking for their next partner.
Is there any... I was going to say, is there any advice? Because you talked about, if you've either lost a relationship or having these dates, I call it kissing a lot of frogs, but just not having good dating experience. If you're in that, it can be really hard, and it can kind of, bring your morale and your mood down. So any advice to people in kind of that situation?
Yeah, definitely. Well, I get a lot of women who come to me and they are just so over dating, and they're exhausted and they're frustrated. And so what I want to say to them is that you have far more power than you know in dating. You have far more power. It's just that we often don't know how to date in an empowered way.
Okay.
And by doing that, it changes the entire game. When we really step into our power and we use our voice, it changes everything. And not just in love, right? It changes everything in our lives.
Mm-hmm.
So I teach women how to do that in the masterclass.
Is there usually a point that you see with women when you're working with them where it's like I don't know how to ask this question succinctly, but they get to like a point where they're always doing the same thing, and then you're like, okay, this is the step before you meet the guy or Prince Charming. Does that exist?
That is a great question, Raquel. Yes, actually. And I don't think anyone has ever asked me that before. But what I find is that my clients who are most successful have a growth spurt just before we begin working together. So essentially, just like I took that 8 months to do the 8 months of inner work on myself and the soul searching, often in order to manifest like the one or your person or whatever you want to call it, true love, the best love of your life, Usually what needs to happen is some inner work. And it's usually transformative, and it's usually a bit of a growth spurt. It's not to say that we ever stop evolving or growing, but usually there's kind of a tipping point that happens where there's kind of a 1.0 version of us and a 2.0 version, you know? And so that's usually what precedes people manifesting the love of their lives.
So are you usually helping with that part, or is that done before people come find you?
Yeah, good question. So we do touch on some of that in the masterclass. It's good if people are already kind of in that mindset, that they're at least ready and coachable and open to a new way.
So are there mannerisms? Are there things that you're looking for when people are matching and they're looking for a partner? Are there certain things that people should pay attention to?
You know, more than mannerisms, I think really focusing on values is
Okay.
the most important thing. Our values tend not to change over time, and we tend to get along best with people who what matters most to them is what matters most to us. If we both like really embrace family, for instance, then we want to have children, or we already have children. Someone who has that same family value, things are going to go easier from them. You know, I think love and relationships get such a bad rap sometimes about there's so much work, and you know, all relationships require all this work, and some relationships do. But when we choose better, it doesn't have to be a lot of work. There is work, you know, for every relationship, but more days than not should be joyful and happy and wonderful. And I don't feel like we hear that message enough.
No, I feel like when it comes to relationships, you always hear like it's work. And when it comes to work, you always say, well, if you find, you know, something you love, you don't work a day in your life, right? But it should. It makes sense that should go the same way with relationships.
Completely. Yes. We just often don't know how to choose better. Most people, when they come to me, they either need to raise their bar or they need to lower their bar.
Oh, okay. So if people do need help with their bars going up or down, how can they find you? How do they get a hold of you, Dr. Battey?
Yes, good question. So you can email me at holly@findloveatlast.com. That's also my website. You can learn about the masterclass at myloveatlast.com. And I also have a Facebook group that you could join called Conscious Singles, From Single to Soulmate. And I'd love to connect with you there. I'd also like to extend to your audience. The first 10 people who email me will win a 30-minute dating success call.
So they just have to mention that they heard you on the Soul Source podcast when they send that email.
Yes, definitely.
Okay.
Perfect. We're going to have all of that contact information in the show notes here for Soul Source. That's a tongue twister. But that will all be down below as well. And Dr. Holly, we really appreciate you being here and sharing these insights, because finding love is something I think everybody's out there trying to do. So this has been amazing.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. It was a total joy.
Thank you for listening. And if you want to hear more Soul Source, just subscribe to our show. We're available wherever you listen to podcasts. And you can watch us too. We're on YouTube. Just look for Soul Source. Soul Source is brought to you by Red Shoes Inc., a leading agency specializing in crisis and strategic communications, media relations, social media, and so much more. To learn more about Soul Source and Red Shoes, visit us at redshoesinc.com.